Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Geometry and Art in the Modern Middle East. This is what the cover looks like. There are a bunch of library stickers on the front of it. I apologize. And the topic just seemed interesting, so I decided to check this book out of the library and give it a read. The book is set up so there is a couple opening essays that aren't very long, just a couple of pages each. They are Geometry in a New Perspective and The Spectacle of Geometry. Geometry in a New Perspective is by Roxane Zand, and The Spectacle of Geometry is by Dr. Sussan Babaie. I hope I'm saying those names correctly. So these just discuss the aim of the book, which is put out, I think, best on page 19 in The Spectacle of Geometry essay, where it says, "This book brings a range of contemporary artistic practices together with the aim of viewing geometry through the lens of modernity or post-modernity." So the authors or the collectors or the editors of this book are taking different artists who have connections to the modern Middle East, and their work has a strong feature of geometry, and collecting them in this book. Each artist gets a brief page where they can put an essay about their work. So we have one here. It's just a one-page essay. And then the authors, or I assume the artists actually, pick a couple pieces which display the art they're discussing and place it here. The other page, the facing page, just has the information about the art that you are viewing, as well as the location where it may be. This book, the concept of it was very interesting, which is why it appealed to me, so I checked it out of the library. But I think in practice, maybe this wasn't exactly the right book for me, and we're going to discuss why, as well as looking at some of the art that did speak to me and that I really enjoyed. So I think there's two types of books, two broad categories of books when we discuss nonfiction books. Those are books for people who want to know, and then books for people who are in the know. So the want to know books are trying to gather interest, are trying to explain the concepts that are present in the field, trying to educate the person reading the book on the topic being presented, and books for those in the know are assuming you have a base set of knowledge, information, and that you kind of understand the field being spoken about. We're not going to take time to explain everything that's being shown. We're going to assume you have a level of, I don't want to say expertise, but a higher than baseline level of knowledge in this field. So this book definitely felt more like a book for those in the know versus for someone like me who is hoping to read this book and get a book for those who want to know. So the book was definitely for people who are already very familiar with, I don't know how to say this, art theory, contemporary art criticism. The book seemed to aim for people who already understand how to look at and know art, which I think everyone can appreciate art, but I definitely don't know how to necessarily view art and understand art in the way that maybe someone who this book was intended for does, if that makes sense. I think this book was written for people who are already in the know, because they were using in these essays a lot of language that I did not understand. I would read the same sentence 4 or 5 times, and I still didn't understand what was being said. I didn't understand some of the concepts. Different types of arts, different branches of arts, different style of art were being thrown out there with no explanation, which resulted in me having to do a lot of Googling on Wikipedia, which did result in some cool finds, but it was definitely a book that they assumed you already understood all the concepts being discussed in the essays, as opposed to what I was hoping for, which is where you would explain the concepts to me because I don't know this. So I think in that sense, I was already a little off kilter going into this book, but overall it did wind up being a very good experience because the art was fantastic. I just didn't necessarily understand the essays that accompanied the art. So I probably would understand the art a lot more if I understood the essays, if that makes sense. But I'm going to try my best because I don't want to malign these artists because I didn't understand the essays. That's kind of on me, and maybe I should have started with a book that was a little bit more explanatory on this topic before I tried to dive into a book like this. But I didn't know this book was going to be written in this style, so again, this was probably just a little bit of a mismatch. I also have to say, out of all my Googling, I ran into this idea of systems art. It was actually in the essay here by this author, Ebtisam Abdulaziz. This is his name right here. And after a little bit of Googling and time on Wikipedia, that seems like a very interesting field that maybe I would like to do a little bit more reading on. But in books that explain what these this kind of art is, not a book that already assumes I know what this type of art is, because this book kind of assumed I knew things that were related to system art and what system art was, and I had never heard of that before, but it seems interesting. So again, I think a lot of my complaints of this book are not because the book is bad or poorly written or poorly edited or poorly explained, but this was a book and reader mismatch that occurred. But I do not, again, want to malign any of these artists. The art was really super cool, and I want to show off some of my favorite pieces. Even if I didn't fully understand the pieces, I think the art in this was absolutely fantastic and enjoyable. The first one was this. It's like a laser cut cube with a light bulb in it that's displaying all these designs on the wall. This is actually in the Cincinnati, at least according to this down here, Cincinnati Art Museum, which isn't super far away from where I live. So I would love to go see this in person. I think this is one of those art pieces that the photograph doesn't do it justice, but this is what this one is. That one seemed really cool and interesting. Oh, these are by Analia Kwayam Agya. Artist name is there. Another piece, this one here, similar concept. Again, I think it's one of those things that just looks cooler when you see it in person. The next one is on page 38 and is by Zainab Al-Hashemi. This is the artist's name up here, in case I am pronouncing them incorrectly. This is the piece right here. It is suspended structure, stained glass, and welded metal mesh. I liked this one. And I think as you flip through this book, you find that you can spend a lot of time looking at the art. A lot of these I would love to see in person, but the art was quite interesting. It just, again, was that reader mismatch where I didn't fully understand what was going on in the essays at any given time. But that's on me. Rashid Al Khalifa, this is the artist's name. This was an essay that I found particularly confusing, but the art was super cool. This is actually supposed to be a maze of some sort, grid maze, and I wonder if it's the kind of maze that you're allowed to walk through, because I think it'd be super cool to go through this art. But it seemed quite pretty and interesting, and I'm very sorry to the author because I wish I understood your essay. I think I just didn't. This is art by Ahmad Angawi. Artist's name is right there. And this is Geometry Unfolded, where there's like step-by-step showing how the piece of art is designed. Again, I think a lot of these installation pieces are things that would just be better to be seen in person as opposed to a static photograph. But I'm not going to be able to see all these in person, I don't think. Finally, the last one is on page 125 that I want to show off. Again, the art kind of was what stuck out to me because I really didn't understand much of the essays. This is the Naksh Collective. That's the artist's name. It's actually two sisters, I believe. This one was probably my favorite, and it is called Leap of Faith. This one I really enjoyed. I really liked this piece. This does not say where it's located, so I do not know where I could go find this, but this was a really, really cool piece. And again, this was a case of I wish I understood what the essays were saying, or I wish that on this facing page, the artist had included information about the piece that I was actually looking at, because again, I felt like I didn't always understand what I was looking at. But overall, it was actually quite an interesting book. If you maybe have a better understanding of art than I do, you would probably enjoy this book quite a bit. If you just want to look at interesting and cool art from the modern Middle East, then this book is also a great fit for you because there's a lot of cool art. If you are looking for a book that really breaks it down to the basics and gives you a basic introduction to this field, this is probably not the book for you. And that's the camp that I fell in. I wanted a little bit more of an introduction to this field, and I got more of a you should already know this field and here's some artists to look at kind of book, so it was a bit of a mismatch in that regard. But the art was great, so I'm just focusing on the pieces that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed looking through the art, so that is where I'm going to leave this review. However, if anything I said or showed during this review is interesting, then maybe give this book a check out, maybe see if you understand this book more than me, and maybe you will find this book enjoyable to read yourself. If you have any books like this, or after listening to this review, you think you have a book that you would like to suggest me to read, please leave it in the comment section below. I'd love to receive it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.